But the biggest hurdle is a corrupt system called Bollywood. It's a very spineless, coward industry. Kangana, they are so scared of Kangana. I'm not justifying what she says, how she says, that's her choice. Tashkent Files, critics said we won't review it. That film was released only in 150 or 170 screens. 2 films of Dharma came between this and all of them bombed. I definitely make better films than you. That's why my films were running. These star-based films, story, idea doesn't matter. It's the star which matters. And ultimately, your film is as good or as bad as the star. Recently, a film came, very celebrated. I mean, everybody's talking as if it's the biggest hit, though it's not at all. Because a big actress's career is involved in that. That's why. Who keeps yachts in India? That's not Indian youth. You go and see in the Kashmir Files who's Indian youth. That is Indian youth.
Today we have with us Mr. Vivek Agnihotri, who will be speaking to us about his upcoming film, The Kashmir Files. I want to start by asking you, what was the trigger point to make a film on the genocide of the Kashmiri Pandits?
There was no trigger point as such. There are certain stories you want to make, you want to tell the world. And this perhaps is the most tragic and the most complex story of our times, And as a filmmaker, I thought that it is my duty and time has come that I must deal with this complex subject, which nobody is allowed to make a film on. So this untouchable subject, which a totally banned subject, I said, let me just pick it up and rest is a history in front of you.
Anupam Kher is a Kashmiri Pandit himself. So when you narrated him the subject, do you remember him, what he told you?
See, Anupam Kher has a lived-in experience of this tragedy, not me. I never lived there, so I have no, except for all the research we did for 4 years, meeting all the persecuted and the victims of Kashmir genocide. Besides that, but I never lived the experience. He has seen how his mama was killed, how his other members in the family, his mother, and all those things. So, in fact, but very coincidentally, when I went to narrate to him the story script, it was in New York, and I was there, I met him. So he said, okay, what's the name of my character? And I said, Pushkar Nath. And coincidentally, Pushkar Nath was also the name of his own father. So he instantly connected with that. And his father was a very humble, soft-spoken, very wise person. And I think that became a kind of an inspiration or reference point for him to take this character forward. So when I narrated the story to him, the only thing he said, Vivek, you ought to be blessed by Saraswati. Otherwise, it's impossible for anyone to write a script like this. So, and that really gave me a lot of confidence. And here we are with the film releasing on 11th March.
What were the challenges that you and your team faced while you were shooting for the Kashmir Files?
As far as physical challenges or threats from terrorist groups and all that, I had signed up for that. So I was pretty prepared for it. I knew all this will happen, that I can deal with political opposition. But the biggest hurdle is, which comes from a corrupt system called Bollywood. The problem is that when you go for casting, okay, a lot of youngsters who basically want to be in good books of the establishment, and establishment is run only by 4, 5, 6 big production houses or directors or writers or whoever. Then they're scared to work with me in my films. So I have to find talent who is willing to work with me on such a sensitive subject and who totally believes in me, and that becomes a very difficult task. The second biggest hurdle comes from organizing money, because the Bollywood studios and the producers don't invest any money in these kind of subjects. And also they are so insecure about their own incompetence that they don't want to finance films without stars, or the precondition of Bollywood is that your film either has to be based on a South Indian film or a Hollywood film, or it has to have big stars so that nobody has to think. So it's a non-thinking industry. It's a very spineless, coward industry. Absolutely coward industry. Coward people, what they do is they always attack fearless and courageous people. And you have seen, this is the history of the world. Socrates was given poison. The freedom fighters were hated by the establishment of India at that time. Even today, anybody who is anti-corruption is hated by corrupt people. So I'm also hated by Bollywood for the simple reason they know that my films expose their spinelessness. So main opposition came from Bollywood and Bollywood media. Besides that, the people of India and the Kashmiri Pandit community has blessed me, given them me so much love that even 10 next generations, my children, my grandchildren, can never repay the kind of debt we have.
I want to ask you, why are people scared or afraid or uncomfortable in watching a film that attempts to show the grim reality of India?
What is your height? I'm sorry I'm asking this question, but what's your height?
5'6".
Okay, you are 5'6". Try standing next to a 7-foot tall person.
Okay, I look very short.
Very short. So you try to avoid taking pictures with that person. You get to understand your weakness or your shortcomings or your incompetence when you stand in front of somebody who has values, who's courageous. So these spineless people feel very scared with people who speak up. Kangana, they are so scared of Kangana. I'm not justifying what she says, how she says, that's her choice, but they are scared of her. They don't know how to tackle this. In the past also, so many people have spoken. My thing is, right from my childhood, I have been speaking to power. And power is not the government, because governments don't run establishments. Government just runs government, and government is the weakest establishment in any democracy, whether it is America or Britain or India. In Bollywood, do you think the government runs establishment? No. The establishment is run by 4 or 5 big production houses, top directors. Who runs the media? The top conglomerates and companies. They tell journalists and editors what should be published and what should be the 9 p.m. prime time news. So the establishment is with the corporates, not with the journalists. So any journalist speaking against those corporations is anti-establishment. That is the voice of dissent. So terrorists in Kashmir, they are the establishment. Speaking against them is anti-establishment and dissent. Speaking against government, mein kya hai? Anybody, even a dog, can stand up and speak anything against the government, because government is a faceless entity. They can't do anything. They can't say anything. So speaking against the government is a hypocrisy. You have to speak where the threat lies. You speak against the 5 big production houses. The minute you speak against their malpractices and their nepotism, you are barred. You don't get any work. I have done that. I'm totally boycotted, isolated by boycotts production houses and actors. So that is anti-establishment. This is the biggest hurdle one faces when one talks truth and speaks truth to the power.
The Tashkent Files ran for over 100 days in cinemas. It ran to packed houses despite competition from Avengers Endgame and Salman Khan's Bharat, which released 2 months later. The audiences know about this. Do you feel the commercial success of the film needed a lot more coverage from the media?
See, if the media had not boycotted me, that film would have had made double the money. Why I say Bollywood establishment? That film was released only in 150 or 170 screens. And 5 days later, Kalank released in 5,000 screens.
Yes.
Do you see the inequality? Now, who's weak? Who's minority? Who's oppressed? These people go and speak at JNU about the oppression and oppressed theory. All these successful directors, actors who work with big setups, 100, 200 crore rupee setups, they go and sit in bandstand and raise placards. But the people who are actually fighting and changing the face of Bollywood, they go unrecognized. Tashkent Files, critics said we won't review it. And not just that, some critics who reviewed it, they started attacking me, gave 0 stars. What kind of a critic gives 0 stars, yaar? Kuch to acting rahi hogi. There were 5, 6 national award winners in that film. You had nothing to say about acting. You don't care about the Lal Bahadur Shastri's death and the real theme. Nobody has picked up that theme before. At least give me some credit for innovation. And then say film is third rate. But at least give me some recognition for something. 0 stars? What kind of a stupid and vicious and really sick kind of a critic will do that? But those critics, the stars run after them. They are given thousands and thousands rupees of gifts every year. Everybody bends in front of them. Special screenings are kept for them. And those people do this injustice. Nobody talks about it. What right these people have to talk about injustice and oppression and the weak and minorities? Therefore, I have decided to fight against them and if one Tashkent Files has given hope to 500 young Vivek Agnihotri, success of Kashmir Files will open up doors for all those young filmmakers who are not cool like the typical Bollywood cool gang.
So many critics, major critics, didn't review that film, and yet it was a commercial success, which shows that critics may not matter to the audience after a while.
No, critics do matter. Like I said, if critics had not done that, the film would have, more people would have learned about it, right? In most of the tier 2 towns, movie was taken out minute Kalank came. Then people went to theaters and they protested and they said, we want to see this film in places like Ranchi, in Patna, in so many places. The film in Agra, the film after 3 weeks was again released in theaters and then it ran for 100 days. So who stopped it for first 3 weeks? Kalank, you have made a bad film. You were the producer, director. You made a bad film. That's why it bombed. And they blame me. They think it because of me it bombed. I mean, how stupid you can get. You had 5,000 screens. We had only 170 screens. When Kalank came, those 170 screens became 110 screens or something like that, exact figure, but very less. And then one day it was 75 screens, but then it started picking up. And then nobody could stop it. The End Game, Student of the Year, 2 films of Dharma came between this and all of them bombed. Why they have to blame me? I'm not their enemy. I definitely make better films than you. That's why my films were running. I didn't make crap like you make just because you have strength and muscle. That's why it ran.
You made Chocolate and Gold, which were your hardcore commercial pot boilers. And then, of course, you made the Tashkent Files. You are making the Kashmir Files. So was it a conscious decision to step into a more real world of storytelling?
Of course, yes. 2 things. I never planned in my life to become a filmmaker. I was in advertising. And then when I was in advertising, then Z asked me to make some shows for them, like these 2-hour telefilms. So I made a film called Chocolate. And that time Z's the creative policy was, they didn't want to experiment with the new ideas. And they were hellbent that we make films on established novels, popular, successful novels or successful Hollywood films. So it was easy for television filmmakers. All these people who made with me at that time followed that. So we made something called Chocolate, which was based on Usual Suspects. And at that time in India, right from Mahesh Bhatt to Yash Raj Productions, to all the Sanjay Gupta or whoever you name it at that time, every single person was forced to copy Hollywood films because stars wouldn't do your films if it was not without seeing a DVD. At that time, it used to be VHS cassettes, without seeing those VHS and DVDs of a foreign film. So Chocolate was made because no actor listened to the script. They wanted to know which film it's based on. I said Usual Suspect. Everybody signed that film without even reading or listening to the script. This is the Bollywood for you. But then I realized that in Bollywood, your film can be as intelligent and as wonderful as the star's intelligence is. A film came at the same time, Chak De and Gol. Chak De had Shah Rukh Khan, Gol had John Abraham at the same time. Both equally appreciated. But if you take Shah Rukh Khan and put him in Gol without changing anything, and take John Abraham, put him in Chak De without changing anything, the business will reverse. Gol will do business what Chak De did business what Gol did. Then I realized in these star-based films, story, idea doesn't matter. It's the star which matters. And ultimately, your film is as good or as bad as the star. So I said, I'm not going to work in this system because it was not my plan to make movies. But so I left and I started teaching in management institutes, some top B schools, of the world. And that's where some students asked me to mentor them in a film, and we made Buddha in a Traffic Jam, and rest is history. And I decided I'll make films which are known for me. I'll make movies which are only the stories which only I can tell, nobody else can tell. I want this exclusivity on my creation. I don't care what kind of business they do. Even if I make a film in 10 years, I'm happy, but it has to be a Vivek Agnihotri film. And I've ensured in all my 3 films.
Do you feel the reason why most of the films, big films, have failed over the years because they had a lot of Western sensibilities? They were not Indian enough.
Of course. See, you can run films with hype only for some time. See, the problem is that most of the people who are making movies today have never stepped outside of South Bombay or South Delhi. They don't even know what India is all about. Recently, a film came, very celebrated. I mean, everybody's talking as if it's the biggest hit, though it's not at all. Okay, the reality the audience knows, but they are using all their PR power and muscle to position it because a big actress's career is involved in that. That's why. They are all psychopaths. But look at that. Anybody, even a 5-year-old child or any sensible person or a 90-year-old grandmother or grandfather, you show it to them in any part of India, ask them, have you ever seen anybody like that? Do you imagine this is possible in India? No. They'll say, no. You don't know. I mean, who keeps yachts in India? That's not Indian youth. Indian youth is like you. Indian youth is the person, the boy and the girls who are working in McDonald's. Indian youth is somebody who's pulling a rickshaw in Kanpur right now. Indian youth is somebody who's taking dabbas for lunch. Indian youth is somebody who's preparing for engineering and for becoming a doctor or CA. Indian youth is somebody whose parents are worried ki is beti ki shadi kab hogi. Indian youth is somebody who's tying cloth on her face and driving a scooty to go to a tuition and then to college, then tuition in the evening, then coming back home, making rotis with her mother for younger brothers and father. That is Indian youth. इंडियन यूथ है जिसको सुबह माँ टंकी में चढ़ा के कहती है पानी चेक करो, जो नल चेंज करता है, जो जाके आटा पिसवाता है. That is Indian youth. What kind of Indian youth do you know? Indian youth is not what your friends are. So they are fooling the audience, making these stupid films saying this is Indian youth. This is not Indian youth. How long can you keep a lie alive? Therefore, people are rejecting your films. Who is Indian youth? You go and see in the Kashmir Files who is Indian youth. That is Indian youth.
What do you feel will be the audience's takeaway from the Kashmir Files?
See, audiences can react in any way. I don't know. I can't predict for the audiences. But majority of the audiences will not be able to speak for a long time after coming out of the theater. They won't even know how to get up, whether they should get up and leave or they should sit for some time. This is how most of the audiences are going to react. Anybody who has little humanity left in them, even an iota of humanity, anybody who loves human beings, anybody who loves India, anybody who cares about India's great cultural heritage will not be able to speak for a long time. This movie will haunt them. And the second kind of people are, they will know that, oh my God, we are exposed, our truth has come out. The first thing they will do is they'll immediately after they come out of the theater, they'll start posting that this film is a propaganda and this, that, and etc., etc., etc. But in their hearts, they will know that they're lying. This is what the reaction of the film will be.
Subscribe to Midday India. Get direct notifications on all our videos by clicking on the bell icon.